Listen to your favorite shows live and on demand 24/7. Download the 77 WABC mobile app now. A common sense recap of the day's biggest stories. It's John Catsimatidis and Rita Cosby. Katz and Cosby on 77 WABC.
And joining us now is former New York Congressman Lee Zeldin. Boy, oh boy, he had an amazing gubernatorial race. And Lee, there is so much to get started with you. We were just talking with Tom Homan about the border and sort of all of these different, like sort of flip-flopping by Kamala Harris. You know, on one hand, you have her on videotape saying everybody come one, come all. And then now she's saying she's tough on the border. You have her saying, oh, I'm tough on crime. I'm a prosecutor. And then you see her supporting the Minnesota Freedom Fund, which bailed out the rioters. Will the real Kamala Harris stand up, right?
Well, it's great to be with you, and absolutely. And what is even crazier than that is how many in the media are circling the wagons to help her get away with it. Her position on camera is that she wants to ban fracking, but her allies want to help make sure that she gets into the White House, that she wins Pennsylvania. So late this past Friday, somebody on her team tells some reporter that she's changed her position. So then that will get reported out, and then if anybody wants to say that Kamala Harris wants to ban fracking, it comes now with formal fact checks. We saw it with the Borders Are piece. I was on CNN. I referenced it. David Axelrod was sitting across the table, and he immediately said, no, that's not true. She was never the Borders Are. And while that was a surprise to hear, that was the first time that I heard it. We had a back and forth. What was wild about that, though, was the next morning in Axios, a reporter writes a story saying that President Trump and his allies are not telling the truth when they say that Kamala Harris was the border czar. Well, it turns out not only did Axios report in the spring of 2021 that Kamala Harris was the border czar, it was the same reporter. So I think voters are going to have to be really smart to what we're seeing, not just out of Kamala Harris, but her allies.
Wow, the same reporter. And just like you said, it's got to do the fact checking. You know, I want to also get your reaction to the fact, obviously, as a New Yorker, I'll tell you, I was so upset to hear that there was a plea deal with the 9/11 mastermind. Your thoughts, Lee? I mean, come on, we shouldn't be negotiating. There should be no plea deals with the guy who encouraged Osama bin Laden and helped fund it.
There is no greater example of somebody deserving of the death penalty than Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the mastermind of 9/11, all of the death that came with it, the suffering, the pain, the treasure lost, the limbs that were lost afterwards in the years and the decades to follow. But specifically on September 11, 2001, on the largest attack that's ever happened on our homeland, it's something that for me, my life, it really has been separated into two parts. I'm 44 years old. Almost half of it is before 9/11, almost half after. It changed my life. It changed a lot of lives of New Yorkers and others, a lot more than it changed mine because they lost a loved one. The justice that they deserved was the death penalty, period, end of story. There should be no negotiations for anything less.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, to me, it's shocking. Why would you ever negotiate with somebody who and the families lead, the 9/11 families said that they were not consulted. They feel outraged and they feel cheapened. I mean, they wanted to see this guy brought to justice. They wanted to see a trial. They wanted to look at his face.
And they're right for feeling the way they do. They're entitled to whatever emotion, pain, opinion that they have with regards to how this played out. It's an injustice. There's no other way to spin it. What the appropriate punishment is in this case is the death penalty, and you can't convince me otherwise.
Yeah, Congressman Lee Zeldin, I want to ask you about also this news we were just talking about at the top here, that it looks like, I mean, you know, you never know till you know, but it looks like Josh Shapiro, the tea leaves are kind of pointing, the Pennsylvania governor probably is going to be the pick for Kamala Harris. She's got a rally in Pennsylvania on Tuesday. What are your thoughts about that? It's interesting because Judge Weinberg was talking about how some progressives are up in arms because he's a Jewish American.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of outrage inside of Michigan. Rashida Tlaib and her allies out of Dearborn, But at the same time, Josh Shapiro in many ways already is far left in many other ways. He might be Jewish, and that for some reason inside the Democratic Party is a cause for attack by some. But on top of it, as we're all witnessing the Olympics, where we just saw a man beating up on a woman inside of a ring as they compete for Olympic gold, Josh Shapiro is the one who's out there saying trans women are women. Now, there's a lot of issues that are important for parents who are out there. They care about this issue. In New York, Proposition 1 is going to be on the ballot this November. It was pushed through by Albany Democrats. It's something that amends the state constitution, and it would create a protected right for men and boys to be able to compete against girls, to use their bathrooms, to be able to change inside of their locker rooms. There are a lot of issues that are important to us. We care about the border. We care about the economy, energy independence, foreign policy, and all of that should be vetted. What the Democrats have done here in switching out the top of their ticket after 14 million people cast their vote for Joe Biden is something that outrages a lot of people who are strong, loyal supporters of Joe Biden. But on top of it, what's most important for America is that there's a full vetting. And ultimately, at the end of the day, what's going to decide this election is going to be a choice for president. And Kamala Harris, she's avoiding the tough questions. She won't do the tough press conferences, and she only will debate if the left is setting the terms of how that debate should be set. So I think that we need to make sure that Americans who care about these issues, that so many of them that are important to them, that they get that vetting that they deserve so that they can make an informed decision on which way our country goes from here.
Absolutely. Judge Weinberg.
Going back to that piece of legislation that's going to be on the ballot in November here in New York, it's a consumer fraud, Lee, because they're vetting it and narrating it as somehow it's an equal rights amendment. It's not an equal rights amendment. It's carrying forth an agenda for transgender. And that's a very big deal, and people need to know that.
Right. When our rights come in conflict with the right of the person who identifies as trans, what this is saying is that the person who identifies as trans is the superior, that's the superior race, the superior being, the superior gender. So that's an issue for a lot of New Yorkers, but it's not even just that. It covers other issues. There are concerns about the language as it relates to national origin, as we've seen inside of New York City, where they passed a law to give people who are legally in our country the right to vote, and that was challenged in court. It continues to be challenged. There is a push that we're seeing in other municipalities in Washington, D.C. and elsewhere to try to give a right to vote to people who are legally here. We see rights beyond that. So what does that mean? And there's a lot of concern that if this ends up passing in November and you amend the Constitution and you provide this protected right based on national origin, that the sanctuary city and sanctuary state policies we have in the right to vote are going to be expanded and protected. So all these concerns need to be vetted out. And you're absolutely right, Judge, where they're trying to brand this. In some cases, they're trying to say that this is an amendment that's all about abortion. You're not going to find the word abortion in the language that was passed by the legislature, and you're not going to find it on the ballot in November. It's important for voters to understand that it's a whole lot more than what the left is claiming it is.
And Ed Cox, real quick.
Lee, your race for governor was tremendously important in our winning 11 congressional races here in New York and a majority in the House of Representatives. How do you think this California progressive Harris is going to have an impact here in New York in those congressional races at the top of the ticket?
She has a long record of being supportive of tax policies that are proposed up to 70-80%. We're just talking about her push for banning fracking. We were just talking about trans rights. The list goes on. She is to the left of Joe Biden, and inside of these suburban House districts that are battleground districts, this isn't the far left, deeply blue New York that we get defined on, often around the rest of the country. But if you think that all of New York is deeply blue, you're greatly mistaken. And in these districts, you have there was 6 House Republican freshmen elected in 2022 in districts that Joe Biden won. You have a lot of competitive seats. There's opportunities to go on offense. New York 3, where Mike LaPetri is running. New York 18, where Allison Esposito is running. And if we campaign hard, we take nothing for granted, we're a strong team, we raise the resources, we have the volunteers, and everyone gets out and votes, not only can we maintain the House Republican delegation we have in the state, we can grow it.
All right. Well, Lee Zeldin, thank you very, very, very much. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you, Lee.
Thank
Keep
you.
up the good fight. Thank
Take care,
you.
guys.
Janine Pirro here for Colonial Metals Group. Colonial Metals Group helps Americans protect their future with the most trusted store of wealth in human history, physical gold and silver. If you're retiring or retired, go to colonialmetalsgroup.com/Pirro for your free Janine Pirro Colonial Metals Group Retirement Protection Kit, or call 800-965-8004. 800-965-8004 now to receive a free home safe and up to $7,500 in free silver.